Thank you everyone for being today here. It's yeah, it's an exciting day for me because I've been working on what I'm gonna show you all for a while now, but I haven't really been talking about it publicly quite yet. And so today I'm really excited to see what do people think. And oh yeah, lots of dinner for folks too, that's right. Um, okay, so yeah, so I'm really excited to see what everyone is gonna have to say. Yeah, I do have a deck. So let's do that. Yeah, okay. So I don't know. I mean, people might be coming here from different ways of hearing about what I'm gonna say today. So some of you may already know things that I'm going to say, and some may not. So I'm just gonna start at the beginning. What I want is for more people to be able to use AI ethically and thoughtfully to do meaningful work. That is the thing that I want. And that is the goal, my goal for this webinar today, to share how I see how this could be done. If you don't know me, here is a bit of my background. I've been working in AI ethics or responsible AI for the last few years. I've been doing consulting, research, training, really kind of all areas responsible AI from adoption to um, strategies for responsible development, procurement, investment, kind of everything responsible AI I've been doing. And that's exactly the launching pad for what I'm going to share with you today. Yeah, I want to get more people kind of hands-on and kind of embed ethics in the way that they're using AI. And you would not be surprised that I do have philosophy background because I do tend to think critically about narratives, and that's a bit of what you're going to see today as well. So this is where I want to start. This is how I'm seeing the way that people talk about AI these days. Like I feel mostly I'm hearing people in those two extremes, right? There's either the side of absolute hype and FOMO, right? We'll hear things like, oh, AI has PhD level expertise. It will make you $1 trillion in just 5 minutes. Like the most FOMOing thing ever. Okay, I see the laughs. I'm not alone. And, 10x productivity, all of those things, we keep hearing them again and again and again. I personally am a bit alienated by this way of talking. But it is very, very common. The other side of this extreme is the fear. So this was FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. This is just fear. Um, AI will take our jobs. AI is making me dumber. AI is biased, right? Focused on all the risks. It's really tough to find an in-between space. Every time I chime in, I feel like people try to position me, are you here in the hype or are you here in the fear? And even that fact is a bit stifling. If you don't find yourself in this continuum, how do you even have a conversation with someone? And I felt neither of them actually fits. And it took me a while to realize why. It's because there's something that underlies both of them that I actually disagree with. That's the reason. And that's what I want to talk about today. What I see is underlying both of these extremes, both of these views is an approach to using AI, which I'm calling the takeout approach. So I'm going to talk about this approach today, and then I'm going to talk about my alternative. The goal, again, use AI thoughtfully and ethically to do meaningful work. We don't actually have to settle for one of those. We can come up with a third, and that's what I did. So the plan, as you might expect, first I'm going to talk about this approach that I see underlying, those extremes. I'm calling it a ticket approach to AI, as I said. Then I'm going to talk about my alternative, which I'm calling the chef approach. I'm going to go through some examples from actual people that I've worked with. And then in the Q&A session, what I'd love to do, if people are interested, is yes, answering questions, but also a bit of brainstorming. I'm going to talk about ways to think of work, and something I really love doing is just talking with people, what is it that you do? How could what's a good way to incorporate AI in what you do? So I invite you to have this question in your mind as I go through those slides, think about how this might apply to you. And then if you'd like, let's brainstorm about it in the Q&A session. Okay, so oh, also stop me at any point. Either raise your physical hand or your, virtual hand. Yeah, questions are just fine at any point, or comments too. And with that being said, any questions or comments so far? Oh, I see things in the chat. Okay. And people introducing themselves. Great. Okay. So let's jump in this approach, which I'm calling the takeout approach. This is how I think most people talk about AI. This is the image that I'm getting when I'm talking to them. It's like a human-like entity that we're just going to offload all of our tasks to. So if it's going to do our tasks for us and it's going to enhance productivity. Anyone else seeing this in the wild? Yeah? Seeing some nods?
I mean, they
Yeah,
want the narrative of all we fire all the humans and get all the machines to do the work.
that's right. And we get them a cup of coffee too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, very common mindset. And yeah, I'm going to have Claude write my grant proposal. That's right. Oh yeah, that's actually a really good example because that's what I was gonna say. When we think of AI in this way, here's what's happening in the background. We are using AI for a very specific purpose, and that's to produce a final product for us. For example, chatbot, write this document, like, like the comment we just had in the chat. Chatbot, write my grant proposal, and we kind of ship it off. And it's a bit like takeout, isn't it? I'm calling, hello. I guess it's not on a phone. I'm doing it with an app. Hi, I would like my pad thai, please, right now. I don't want to cook it. I want you to cook it and bring it to me. I might tweak it at the end. Maybe I'll add some salt. I might move it to a different plate. Probably not. But someone else is doing it for me, and I'm just kind of consuming it. Why are we doing this? I think it's because of how those tools are marketed and the things that we are promised if we do it. We're promised speed, right? Productivity, 10x, 10x. We're promised to have stunning results, right? PhD level expertise is what they say. And so we try, we ship our requests hoping to get the pad thai in return. This is what I'm calling the takeout approach to AI. And yeah, I feel that this is for the most part the way that people are using AI. How do people feel about this? Are you seeing this too? Yeah. Some comments in the chat. Yeah, I'm seeing yes all the time. Do you want to expand? Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Ariel says
I
50.
would I,
Yeah,
I would expand to say that what a lot of enterprises are doing are just trying to optimize and automate their systems with AI. It's not the same as what you're pointing out here exactly, but it's the same kind of thing. They're looking at it very simplistically. Here's what I can go do with it, as opposed to the real potential that AI offers in an organization when
that's
you think
right.
about
That's
it more
right.
broadly.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're looking to optimize, right? Because they want the speed. And they want those stunning results and they want it now, right? And they just want to kind of send something and get something back. Yeah, so I think we're on the same page. That's what it sounds like to me, Jim. Yeah. And I'm seeing some comments. Helen is saying, I'm definitely seeing that. And sometimes a lot of um disillusionment as a result when they don't get what they wanted. Okay, great segue because this is exactly what I was gonna say. This is a great fantasy, but let's be honest, the emperor is actually naked. And that's the reality of it. When we're using those tools beyond the surface level, and once kind of the initial excitement kind of goes down a little bit, we realize that it's just not as good as we thought. Superficially, it looks good. Doesn't this hand look good? But actually, it has 6 fingers. Whoops. Um, So what we're getting is outputs that, first of all, just don't capture what we want. Also, huge problem is the misinformation or other types of errors, bias, which is another type of error. And then we go and like we tweak. Um, but then it's just frustrating and time goes by and it's just like we are thinking, oh, I should have done it myself to begin with. And that's the experience that a lot of us are having. This is a quote from someone who's actually here. uh, right? It's just a familiar experience. I tried and failed to get something reasonable. Time spent 1 hour. I've been there. Like, who hasn't? I spent more, right? Um, so that's one problem with the takeout approach. It's not as shiny as we have been promised. Second problem, this view of AI really kind of idolizes speed, accelerate faster, faster, faster. But do we want to really go faster? Do we always want to go faster? Speed in itself, we all know, is not a good goal. What are good goals? A bunch of other things, such as meaningful work, enhancing our skills, achieving our objectives, achieving our values. When we only think of speed, what can happen? And I've heard this in organizations. They look for ways to integrate AI, and they end up speeding up work that is actually not important. So they just spend more time on work that is unimportant. And this is a quote from someone I worked with. When we talked about this, she said, "Oh, it's like roller skating on a treadmill." And I really think it captures it because you're moving faster, but you're going nowhere. And that's the problem when you kind of sanctify speed over all things. Third thing I want to talk about is the problem that I personally care about the most, cognitive decline. This is a comment I got on LinkedIn from someone when we talked about Gen AI, and he said, "Is it making me faster? Yes. Is it making me dumber? Also, yes." Such a common feeling. I felt this many times too, and we're starting to see this really backed up by research, right? We just recently we had this great paper from an MIT organization saying that when you use AI in these ways that I've described, it actually decreases your brain activity. Yeah, let's sit with that for a minute. And it's just the last of a series of many research studies that show the same thing. It's not surprising. That's what happens when you offload a task to something else. It's really not the first time that we're seeing this. And so we're experiencing cognitive decline, skill loss, and actually we're automating ourselves out because think about what we're doing, right? In this take it approach, the goal is to offload what we do away to something else. And so kind of by definition, we are cutting ourselves out. And I think that that's where the replacement vision is coming from, right? The fear that AI is going to replace us, and we're seeing it from many people, influential people, like Elon Musk said last year. Probably none of us will have a job. Bill Gates said just in March of this year, humans won't be needed for most things. And then I live in Pittsburgh. This is the CEO of Duolingo, who is headquartered here. And he, it was quite a bit of a scandal when he put out his announcement that he's going to um, go AI first, including firing all contractors and changing everything. Right? We're seeing this view everywhere. We're seeing this panic. And I do think it all comes back to how do we think about AI and what is it supposed to be doing? Obviously, I have the solution, right? um, but I just want to pause here and kind of ask people. Oh wait, I already saw a comment in the chat. Yeah, I wanted to ask people, how does it all strike you? Are you feeling those downsides at all, or maybe some other ones? Oh, Eric
Well,
says that you used to. What do you mean? Say more.
I think there is a natural progression that there is a little bit of fear that, hey, if I build something and it does what I deliver, then there's this natural tendency for us to think, well, I could be displaced. My job function could be displaced. But as you get into more and more the use of these tools, like any tool, you become a master at it. And what you're mastering is not just the use of that tool, but it's what you're creating with it, whether it's your refining of ideas or ultimately what you're trying to produce with that tool. And that's the value. And I think that people are trained in corporate America to discount and lower the value they bring to an organization because they only see you as a very discrete little function. We just need to step out of that. And for me these days, the reason I say I used to is because I'm finding that what I bring, what I ideate, how I share, how I communicate, how I socialize and bring people along in the idea that I want to foster, that interaction could use tools like LLMs and generative AI technology to assist in refining and distilling that idea such that I could be more effective in ultimately what I want to create for my organization or for the business. So in that regard, I'd say that it opens up new opportunities to help me distill and refine my ideas so I can be more effective in what I do.
Yeah, I love it because I think you're saying, tell me if you agree with this. I think you're saying if we use AI in this simplistic way, it will happen, but it doesn't have to happen, right? If we find other ways to use it. I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
That's right. If you see yourself as a tool, then you be treated as a tool.
That's right. Yeah, and I loved how you situated it in the context of corporate America because things happen in context. Yeah. And I
But I
saw,
think,
sorry?
go. I think that the problem is broader than that perspective, Eric. And don't take this the wrong way. I'm just brainstorming here. Um, if you look across the many jobs that are out there, because I see this all the time. I had a senior executive who's retired ask me if I would come talk to his family and grandchildren about AI in the hopes of preparing them for what they need to do, right? And I think one of the challenges right now is that we don't know the answer to that question. A lot of people aren't using the system the way Eric is, the way I do, learning from it and growing in that process. A lot of people have jobs that are very basic. In fact, just as a fact, a lot of women hold administrative jobs, which can easily be replaced by AI, which would be my biggest concern because it's not just that group, it's across many, many, many areas, including doctors and attorneys. But that's where I think we have to be more intentional than we've ever been about how capitalism works right now. We're unquestionably more interested in satisfying stakeholders than taking care of the community. And like AI, because I don't know about you, but to me, it's clear that it's accelerating in its use and its power. We need to look at the same thing from a human perspective. Like, how can we start to think about AI so even people who are in administrative roles can be leveraged? They have innate knowledge, they have the ability as a human to reason and think of things abstractly. Um, I think we have to kind of reinvent both what AI is going to bring and what we're going to bring as humans in this mix. But I've taken a tangent here, so I apologize.
No, I think just to kind of add on to that, we also have to reinvent ourselves. And I think that AI is a tool for that. And I think that some of the things that we're going to go through with Repeat, I think will help us in that journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for that. Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. Eric already knows what's coming because he also was in one of my pilots. And that's exactly what I think we should be doing. We must be doing reinventing our work. That's what we really, really need to do. Um, and okay, I see some comments in the chat. And one comment said, no, because I only use it to edit, edit or translate. I, I'm mentioning it because I'm going to come back to it. I think when we start thinking of this different lens, how can we reinvent our work? That's when we are not worried about the replacement anymore and we allow ourselves to bring those tools in to our core work. And that's something I really want to encourage everyone to think about. Like, what does it look like when you bring those tools into your core work? Thank you, Jim. I'm loving the hearts. Okay, I can't. Okay, I see all the comments in the chat. I will come back to them later. Okay, kind of taking everything in, I think that many of us have a sense that there is a different way to use it. But how do we call it, right? How do we formalize a different way of thinking about it that kind of goes against what we're hearing in the current conversation? So here's how I'm thinking about it. I'm calling it the chef approach to AI. Here's the mindset. This is the most important thing I have to say. Design processes. It's not about the final output. It's about designing processes. And those processes should include the use of AI in sophisticated ways. Um, this is the analogy to a chef. Contrast a chef with takeout. A chef would design the recipe. A chef would choose the ingredient, would choose the methods. A chef would also be integral to the execution at each and every stage. It's not just that they write a prompt, send it away and it's gone. No, they are a part of the process each and every step of the way, but they are using tools as they see fit. This is the vision that I see for AI. This is how I think we should use it. When we use it this way, we first of all we develop our skills, right? Our skills are not declining because we're not offloading anything. We are increasing our skills. We do get better outcomes because now we have shaped those outcomes more, and we get the new version of our work. We get this reinvention. That's what happens, and that's what I think we should be aiming for. Comparison moment. Think of this task that I've mentioned before, writing, chatbot, write this document, or the example we had, chatbot, write my grant proposal, right? When I do it this way, get me my pad thai. I don't want to deal with it, right? Just get something in return. The alternative is I'm actually going to build a process. I'm going to build a process within a chatbot that will take me through writing that document. So, sometimes I might be doing something with a chatbot. Sometimes the chatbot might be doing something by itself. And sometimes I might be doing something by myself. I will get my output at the end. But I'm using AI differently. That's an abstract example. And I'm going to go on to more concrete examples. But first, I just want to highlight the shift that I'm doing here. Here are some things that we hear people say that I don't disagree with necessarily, but it doesn't really stop there. So here's something we hear all the time: put humans in AI's loop, right? Human in the loop, human in the loop. What people often mean when they say that is that technology, specifically AI, shouldn't make decisions on its own. There's always, there's going to be a person who's going to need to approve or reject that decision. And I agree that this should happen, but it's not that the human is in the AI loop. No, it should be the opposite. The AI is in the human's loop. It's in my loop. It is in my loop, not vice versa. Second, common saying, people say AI is a tool. And I agree with that. When people mean by that something like, well, it's not a person, right? Because there's a lot of personification of AI tools. And definitely it's not a human. But I don't think it's exactly a tool either. I think it's a technology for making tools. I could make so many custom chatbots, right? So many agents with AI. So it's a technology for making tools. And last thing, this is what I hear most about how I'm supposed to be using AI. Use it to do daily tasks faster, right? But why? When we can use it to reinvent our work and get, so much more benefit from it. So this is some common sayings and how I position myself. The next thing I want to do is go through examples, but I'm seeing some comments in the chat and I want to go over them and also just hear what people are thinking about. Um, let's see. Yeah, Jen says it's like how you don't really know how to do a thing unless you're able to teach someone else. So designing a process is, yeah, is the teaching is the analogy. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Really, yeah, very cool. Okay, and then I'm seeing from Jim, so you consider agent a tool instead of generative AI. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, we are creating those tools, right? Um, and then, okay, Dennis is saying, I love the use of design. It involves engineering for an outcome that is newly, that is newly envisioned by a human. AI has the technology to produce the outcome. Yeah. Do you want to expand on that, Denise? We're hearing you just a little bit, just kind of as if you are touching the mic, but we don't hear what you're saying.
Well, it seems to me that even if we look at the structure of what AI is, it's a challenge at best to think that it's going to produce things outside of the data set that it was trained on. And so the human mind can, I think, most beneficially produce new ideas and new ways to work and new ways to accomplish outcomes, and maybe even new outcomes. And then if you have AI assist you in the engineering processes that you have to go through, because there's many ways to engineer an outcome. And so, it can provide alternatives for you, or consider this different process, or you want to use this process, I can speed that up for you. Or, there's a host of things where the AI can bring new ideas to your mind. And then you can say, oh, I can engineer that this way, or, build a tool to do that. So it seems to me like it's a design process. And I love your use of that word design.
Yeah, you're spot on. And I really want to echo something you said. You said, what are the things that AI can do for us? You said, oh, it can make suggestions, for example. And I think that that is exactly what we should be thinking about. The public conversation about AI is really narrow because it says there's only one thing you can do with it, get your final outcome, get your grant proposal, get your edited document, get your translation. And I think the crux of the matter is really thinking about what are some other things that we can do with it, right? It can make suggestions, for example, right? And yeah, I'll go through. This is exactly what I wanted to emphasize in the example. So I'm really glad you brought this up.
Let me give one specific example, if I
Mhm.
might.
Okay.
There's a lot of effort being placed in the compliance end of regulatory compliance and producing competent, reliable evidence of one's compliance. And if you look at just, hey, I want to produce compliance proof X, AI can probably produce that quickly for you. Or if there's an interview process to grab data and put it in, we have the traditional, well, here's a survey and, fill this out, or, some classic method for grabbing evidence and dumping it into a management process. Well, what if we reinvent the manner in which we gather the evidence? And can we use the AI technology to speed that process up and give us, a baseline of compliance evidence gathering and different ways to look at that? And I think that we can reinvent processes like that one, where if you have to gather evidence to do that, maybe just having AI send a survey out to the stakeholders and have them fill out the questionnaires might we might be able to improve that whole process and re-engineer it.
That's right. That's right.
So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's an example I can think of.
Yeah, yeah. And I would especially emphasize what you said there at the end. It's about improving it, not necessarily speed, right? We want it better, which means that we also have to figure out what we mean by better. Yeah, these are really, really good examples. Let me see some of the comments here. Alexandros is saying, I think I kind of follow the chef approach to some extent, but still feel some guilt surfaces. In other words, I sense an agency discount trade-off. And this makes me feel a bit guilty. Yeah, I'd love to hear more, Alexandros, if you want to expand.
Yes, sorry for using this complex language. I just wanted to say that although I feel this comfort while using this kind of tools, I somehow feel there is a trade-off in terms of actually assigning my brain power to the system. And this although the output and the actual result might look and even be better, there is a trade-off in the analog world, in my brain. I don't see so much how can I say, computing brain power being actually used and exploited the way it should be.
Yeah, you're really hitting the nail on the head there. I'm really glad you brought this up. Yeah, both the sense of I'm giving away something I don't actually want to give away, and also this feeling of guilt. And even though I'm trying, something is not quite there yet. And I think that that is a feeling that many people share, and you articulated so well. Yeah, so I appreciate it, and I hope that that as I go into the examples, it will help you a little bit, and maybe after, if you'd like, we can brainstorm and think, choose a task that you feel this about, right? And then we can do a little back and forth and see what we can, create together as a group. Yeah, is it Dennis or Denise? Probably Dennis, right?
Yeah, Dennis. Alexandros, I appreciate that. And what comes to mind here is, you talk about the human mind processes. My experience has been, as I've deployed AI in investigating new ways to do things, we almost have to recognize that it's trying to drag us back to the mean. You know, it truly is a process whereby it regresses back to the mean. And if we're going to um, try to reinvent things, we have to recognize that's what it's trying to do and keep pushing our minds further so that we can get outside of the data set that it's running from.
Mm-hmm.
Just a
Yeah,
thought.
yeah. Okay. I'm seeing more comments, but I wanna move to the examples. Um, I love how, you brought us back to the reinvent, Dennis, because, as I said before, and I think a lot of people here agree, that's what we need to be doing. But the first step is really understanding what do these other way of using AI look like? We need to kind of shift the way that we're thinking and make more space, right, to more alternatives. So I want to go over some examples. First example, brainstorming. And someone mentioned in the comments, in the chat, I mean, using it for brainstorming. So I want to show two ways of using it for brainstorming. Because what I want us all to do is practice this muscle of switching the way that we think about how to use it. So a very simple way to brainstorm with a chatbot is just kind of, send a message like, yeah, help me brainstorm about topic X. Like I had bees at my house this week, so hence this example, had to remove the bees. They all died, responsible for the massacre of dozens of bees, or maybe hundreds, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so you could write a message to a chatbot, help me clarify my thoughts about the ethics of bee removal. And because I was working on this deck, I tried it out. It's like, okay, what am I gonna get? And what I got was just a list of pros and cons. Oh yeah, it's bad because of this. It's good because of that, right? It's very typical. I call it like the pushy assistant model. It's just gonna shove something in my face, even though I didn't really want your opinion. Um, Here's a different way to do it. Here's how we can create a process, right? Suppose I wanted always to brainstorm about things, right? I could design a process that the chatbot could walk me through, right? And I could say something like, take me through this process for thinking about the ethics of bee removal. And here's a process that you could do. You could tell it like, first, I'm going to give you my input. I do have opinions already on the ethics of bee removal. Then you're going to take me through a series of guided questions. Ask me follow-ups. I find this activity very useful, right? Because sometimes or often something is kind of not fully developed in our minds until someone asks us questions. And then we have to kind of think about it more. And then we kind of discover what it is that we think. You see, I'm the one who's doing the thinking here. I'm coming up with the pros and cons. But then maybe I want a summary at the end, and then I get the summary. So I do end up with a list of pros and cons. But you see that in this model, I've done the thinking. And I've done the thinking on two levels. one, I actually thought about the pros and cons of the ethics of beer removal, but I also have designed this entire process for myself. So I switched, you see. And two, then he said earlier, and I said, this is exactly the right thing to think about. What type of things are we using the AI for? That's one thing that we could use it for, as an example, to take us through a series of guided questions. And we can also design how those questions look like, because I personally am really worried about nudging that chatbots do, right? But we can define that to decrease that problem. So that's one example, kind of a toy example. So a real example now, from the field of architecture. Um, in the field of architecture, one thing that they need to do is render their designs. So this is what the design might look like when the architect designs it in their, many software that does this. They can't, this is not fully useful for them. This is not the thing that they are going to show to the client. Also, they need to visualize more how the building might look like. So they do rendering. That is just something that they do. They take the model and then they do a photorealistic rendering to show how it would look like at the end. How did I even hear about this? From this person, Yael. Yael was participating in one of my courses. And through that, she realized, wait, there's an opportunity here. She's an architect herself, I should say that. And she's also teaching architects about methodologies and softwares. And so she said, okay, here's the way that rendering used to be done. It used to be a huge thing. There are still companies. This is what they do. This is what people do. When she started out and was getting her training as an architect, she told me one time she got as an assignment to render something. And so she spent all day defining all the things in the software that was there at the time. And then she clicks a button and has to wait like 24 hours to the next day until she gets her image. That's how rendering used to happen. Today, we have Gen AI alternative for it. So software that architects use are using special plugins. And the plugins, you can just write your prompt and get your image at the end, right? So you could start with a building like this, and use the plugin, with a prompt like this. You want a modern design with our windows, timber building during autumn. It's kind of autumny, I guess. You see, what we have here, the way that the software, this plugin is intended, just do takeout. Just give me a prompt and just get your image in return. But what Yael is starting to see is it's not, the emperor is not actually fully clothed, is what she's starting to see, right? Because she's doing training as well for other architects. First of all, there's a problem that those images, like we talked about before, they fail to capture the architect's vision. Also, of course, there's a problem of quality, but regardless, what she says, like the architect will give up in the end. It will not be the architect's vision. And so it kind of compromises their professional autonomy. But also ethical concerns come up, like the sustainability or bias issues of the kind of rendering that it comes up with. And of course, professional anxiety. There are still, companies who are doing rendering. What's going to happen with them? And so Yael realized, actually, this whole thing is an opportunity. And that's the shift that I've been talking about, and some of the people who have been participating have been talking about. There's an opportunity here. We don't have to do it this way. We can do it in a different way, right? We can design a process. So I want to show you how the process that we've designed together looks like. And if you wonder what I mean by a process, we've designed a chatbot, a custom chatbot that takes an architect, or I should say, we haven't finished. We're working on this. A chatbot to take an architect through this rendering process, but without this offloading. Yeah, so it starts just like before in my brainstorm example. It starts with just writing your vision in your own words. Start, with you. Think first is, to me, the most important principle of using AI. But the architect writes down their vision for the image in their own words. Then, like before, in the brainstorming example, we are designing a process for guided questions that, of course, are going to be tailored, right? It's not just any question. They need to be questions to help out in fleshing out how the building should look like. So they are tailored, right? And then we need to make some selections. Yeah. So should it be autumn, right? Should it be wood? So the chatbot makes suggestions based on the information that we got here. And then there's, of course, revisions. Then the chatbot takes those suggestions and kind of makes a final prompt, again, revisions. And then we send the image using the plugin. You see how it's like a chef. First of all, Yael and I design the whole recipe, not just the step by step, but also the method. Like what should those questions look like? What should those suggestions look like? But then it's also not touch and go because the architect is going to be involved each and every part of the way, writing a vision, answering those questions, choosing from those things, and then iterating on a final prompt. So we are really embedded here, right? Both in the design and in the execution. Okay, I'm noticing the time. Okay, so I just want to maybe highlight, what I've said before. Do you see how this is not putting the architect in the loop? This is putting AI in the architect's loop, right? So it's the opposite. And AI was a technology that we used for making a tool. Actually, there were two tools because there was this chatbot that we've made, and also there was the plugin in the software. And then it's not just for daily tasks faster. People do this. This is their job, but they need to reinvent their job, right? So I could see why someone who works in rendering might be concerned. Oh no, what's going to happen to my job? And I'm going to say, I can see why you're concerned, but you don't have to be because design those processes. Yael, is tailoring those questions based on her own perspective as an expert. But as we know, different experts have different perspectives. They will do it differently. They will have a different process with different emphases, just like we're used to. There's room, for all of us to reinvent our work. So future of work kind of a thing. Will AI take rendering jobs? That's not how we should be talking about it, in my opinion. It's the opposite. Rendering professionals should use AI to reinvent rendering. That's what I think. And I do want to leave room for discussion. So I just want to mention a few other examples. And one of the people is here today. So hello, but I won't name you to not out you. But anyway, I just want to give you a few more examples because what I want for today is for people to think about this. How do you reinvent your work? How do you redesign processes? What could it mean in your context, right? Writing, one of the tasks that is most worrisome. So Emily is a ghostwriter. She writes business books. We broke it down to a process, outlining, broke it down to a process of outlining, right? Designed a process to do that. In organizational communication, we talked about interview analyses. When because I also do research, when I started working with a research assistant a while ago, he said, "Oh, let's just use Gen AI to analyze this entire interview and give us the annotations." I was like, "What? No." That would be the takeout way to do it. But we don't have to, right? Because we can do our analysis using those same strategies like guided questions, suggested themes, and putting things into structured templates. Third example that I want to give for myself, I mentioned to you that before doing this, I was in academia. So I was doing teaching for a decade. I was always trying to reinvent it because it wasn't fully working for me. I think now I fully got it because I've actually created custom chatbots to create those AI processes. And when I do this, right, it creates a whole new different mode of teaching. Okay, I want to stop here to make time for questions, and then I'll kind of bring everything together at the end. So leaving you with this question to kind of shoot us off the conversation. How can you use AI like a chef in your work? Is my question.